Yes. Whew.
What's up,
I
man?
I am working my way back. Still working my way back. Not 100%, but certainly close enough to 100 to give this thing a roll this week. Can't miss two in a row.
No,
That's at
can't
that
miss
point
the
it's a
ball.
streak in the wrong direction. So we gotta
Yeah,
build this back up from the start here.
two game losing streak.
No.
It's good because guess what? We did it kind of like the Cowboys did. They was on the 0-1. We was on the 0-1 trail. Then
Yep.
you had the voice thing happening, so we was thinking it could be 0-2. We broke through at the last second, came through, kicked it, bam. Here we are, 1-1 right now, just like them Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect segue.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess yeah, let's kick off with just like a super condensed version because it's Wednesday night at this point. We get it. The news has moved on from the win over the Bengals, but we can touch on just one or two quick notes of that before we
I want to
transition.
talk on just one thing, and not even
Yeah,
the notes. I'm
let's go
jumping
for it.
right in. I'm jumping right into the jump right into water. So remember I told you about the Steve Young thing? You heard about it? I know you have. You
Yeah,
heard about it,
Steve
right?
Young basically saying Dak could stand to watch Cooper Rush and see kind of how he operates that whole business.
Right. So I don't want to beat it in the head because everybody's talking about it. Everybody's going back and forth. But I definitely got to get your thoughts on it because I have my thoughts on it. Not crazy thoughts, but I want. I'm just curious. What do you think about that?
And there's a reason Cooper Rush wasn't on this team. Like, what was it, just last year? Like he went to New York, um, with Jason Garrett. So I guess it was the year before that. Uh, Here's the thing: you've got out of Cooper Rush everything you could have reasonably hoped to get. Came in, was serviceable, knew the offense, and was able to do um, just enough to help you win a couple games. That's awesome. And the win in particular, his first win when they went to Minnesota in
The
that game
Jason
winning
Garrett
drive,
game.
yeah, that he punctuated with the touchdown to Amari Cooper, thing of beauty, absolute. Like the cojones on Cooper Rush in that game were ridiculous. But I got to hit pause on all this notion that like, oh, he's the better fit for the Cowboys. Like Dak needs to be reevaluated in this sense for how much they're paying him. Look how much you're paying Cooper Rush, and look what he's doing. No, 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 no. Like in small doses and spot duty in a situation where he has nothing to lose. They've invested nothing else in the quarterback position. Like Ben DiNucci, Will Greer, like what are they both still on the practice squad at this point? Like, or are they even around at this point? Like there's no threat to Cooper Rush. It's nothing to lose in this situation for him to just go out there and cut loose. And credit to him, he made the most of the situation. But to act as if this is like a full-time solution and not just, if you want to say like, hey, you don't have to keep looking for a backup quarterback, I still think you could find better options there, but at the same time, whatever. If that's how you want to build your team and not invest heavily on backup quarterback upgrading in that position, fine. Cooper Rush can be serviceable in spot duty. But the idea that he's a better option than Dak is just hilariously dumb to me.
Yeah, well, number one, I knew that was going to come up as soon as I said it on the show a week before. I said the stuff is going to start when Dak goes out and they have a bad game, just like they did with Tampa Bay. Now, the next game I said, what's going to happen is Cooper Rush and Kellen Moore, all of a sudden, this offense, I said, if this offense looks good under Cooper Rush, it's going to validate. I think we already talked about this before in certain aspects. It's going to start validating to them. See, we told you
Yep.
we were right with Kellen Moore. We
Yep.
told you was right because our star quarterback went out and we have a backup who's riding the ship. So it ain't. Here's the thing. This is how the chatter starts. People are all going to start saying the crazy stuff about Cooper Rush, but the chatter starts with the Joneses because I feel like in my heart they'd be looking at what Los, what's up, everybody. My thing is the chatter will start is okay. if we're like 500, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in my heart, the Joneses will be like, why are we paying him 40 million? And Stephen Jones is already talking about, well, we can't pay everybody, and that gotta realize that we gotta pay everybody.
Right.
So if you can have a quarterback who can win in the system, Kellen Moore, right? So that goes down. Kellen Moore wins in the system, right? They're gonna say, well, we don't need a primetime quarterback because it's the system. Because remember, last year they were talking about Amari Cooper. The system dictates where the ball goes, not
Yep.
really the matchup. So why wouldn't they use it with the quarterback situation with Dak trying to ease their way out, having to pay him or moving on from him in a few years? You get what I'm saying? Because I think
100%.
2024 is when they can come out and say, well, we're just going ahead and move on and we can just get a quarterback because the system says we can win this way anyway. And that's the way for them to keep their money. And just on the back end of that, before you jump in there on the DDP,
Uh-huh.
what Steve Young was saying, in my opinion, it's just like Cooper Rush got cut. Did
Yeah.
anybody pick up Cooper Rush, Steve Young?
No, he went to New York, but I think he just signed there. I don't think he was picked up. So,
And the
and
only
that was for
reason why
five
he was,
minutes because of
and the
Garrett.
only exactly only
Yeah.
because of Garrett. It wasn't because he's good. It wasn't because he's just this dynamic starter. He was following Jason Garrett, just like all the people who left the Cowboys went to the Giants for half a year and they all got fired. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? It was
Yep.
a feel good thing. So Cooper Rush ain't even ever been a starting quarterback in NFL. So it's crazy that Steve Young would actually say that's got to learn from some Cooper Rush. That's just crazy in my head that he would actually say that because it's like Steve Young know better. Like
Yeah.
he know better than to say something like that.
I think it's just the criticism with Dak, especially him having been paid, is going to be high. You know, being the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, especially now that he's being paid as, you know, towards the top of his position, and he's getting this huge contract. I think the standard and expectations are just that much higher. Dak is having to carry the burden and the weight of 25 years of this franchise not getting in the conference championship game, let alone a Super Bowl. And it's weird that like the Joneses, the fans blame them because they get like, hey, you're the only constant here. But media doesn't really blame them because they're just like, well, what are you going to do? They're there. They're not going to sell the team. They're there. So it's kind of like that expectation shifts to these guys. And Romo had to carry that burden for several years, got beat to hell and broken down. And now Dak's having to do that. And so they're looking at it and they're saying, hey, man, Cooper Rush, you know, he might not be a star or anything like that, but he goes out, he has 2 starts, 2 game-winning drives, and his numbers are pretty serviceable in both instances. Like, yeah, he produced, but that's spot duty in games where he's a massive underdog and nobody's going to blame him or thumb their nose at him for losing. Dak used to
Right.
be legit at that too. Like, look at his entire 2016 when he took Romo's job.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was expecting Dallas to do anything that year because Romo went down in the preseason. They were just like, well, if they're 500, I don't know, maybe they can get Romo back in time. They ended up going, what was it, like 12-4 that year,
Mm-hmm.
number one seed, like, or was it
13 and
13 and
3.
3? 13 and
13 and
3,
3.
yeah. Just ridiculous. But the expectations built from that point on. It's like, oh, okay, since you did that as a rookie, then we're going to now hold you to this expectation that you got to go and deliver this team in the next year or two to the conference finals. When it didn't happen, you know, you can say how much of that was Dak not playing well. Obviously, he had a year in there where he really struggled, particularly after that Atlanta game. And how much of that was just the Cowboys failing to build around him and, you know, the Zeke suspension battle with the NFL, all that. Like, yeah, there were different factors in there, but it always comes down. Wins should not be a quarterback stat because there's so many other factors that go into it. But the quarterback is always made to carry the burden more than any other position in any other sport. Like, there's no single player in any sport, no single position that carries burdens for championships the same way a quarterback does.
Yeah, I can definitely totally agree with that one. It's just kind of weird how the dynamic happens. And, I'm just going to say, hey, y'all can think what y'all think. I'm gonna think what I think, and we'll just see how it goes down in these next few years because I listen to what these Joneses say. I don't just listen. If I listen to an interview, I'm going to listen to certain words because I just know how they talk now. So I'm not
Yeah.
falling for the mumbo jumbo. I'm reading in between those lines because they talk in between the lines. If you really pay attention, they
Hmm.
definitely talk in between those lines all the time. So my thing is pay attention to those things when they talk between the lines. And when, like I said, if Cooper Rush, the first time when Dak got hurt, I said, if this offense looks good with Cooper Rush, they're coming at with the validation hard. Like
Yeah.
we're good. We don't need change. And that's why I was saying with Cowboys fans will be deceived and saying, oh, well, all of a sudden, oh, see, I told you. No, first of all, this is what I want to say about that victory against the Bengals. And
Hmm.
I'm not taking away from, but my thoughts is that I said year two. First of all, the Bengals. Nobody expected the Bengals win anything last year.
No,
Okay,
they
nobody
got
thought
red hot at the
they
time of the
got red
playoffs.
hot at the end. They were almost damn near a five. They were, I think, one game over 500
Hmm.
before they went on that 3-game win streak and then lost to Cleveland at the end. But then they had already beat the Chiefs and really got in. And
Yep.
then, like you said, they got hot.
I mean, you look at it too. They were eking out
Oh
games in the
yes, hold on.
playoffs. Burrow was getting the hell beaten out of him, sacked like 5, 6 times a game. That's continued this year, by the way.
Right,
But yeah, no, they were just red hot. Like they're a good team, certainly, and they have one of the best quarterbacks in the league as far
but
as
they're not a
talent.
dominant team by any
But they're
means.
not dominant. And I didn't understand. Like I get that Cowboys have a good defense. I really did not understand why they didn't take more shots down the field, particularly at Trayvon Diggs. Like I know Diggs only had guarding Jamar Chase only gave up 2 catches for like 14 yards, but Higgins was getting work done, especially in that second half against
Yeah, he
Diggs.
was cook. Yeah, he was
I'm
cooking.
I'm surprised they didn't go down the field more against this defense. Like I get part of it was the pressure Dallas was immediately, particularly Micah Parsons was immediately getting on Burrow, but I felt like there was a fault in their game plan there where they weren't really taking advantage of an area Dallas's defense is and can be vulnerable. And I think that hugely dictated how that game played out.
Well, when you look at their touchdown drive, it was 21 plays. That was a
Hmm.
21 play drive. You get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that tells you right there that if they moved the ball like a little bit too late. I don't know what they were really trying, but I feel like that pressure. Michael Parsons really wrecked that game because he was causing so much pressure on Burrow. I just feel
Hmm.
like he was feeling the pressure, even if it may not been pressure. And like you said, you got 6 sacks. Dante Fowler, Dorrance Armstrong Jr. All those guys were coming hard. You know what I mean? Like that pass rush was real, and so I feel like it really just threw Burrow out of sync. From him really
Yeah.
could do what he wanted to do. And then, like we talked about, Dallas does the right thing. They don't do it with Dak, but they do the right thing with Cooper Rush and rush 27 times. They let
Hmm.
him throw 31 times. Dak, you want to chuck it 40 something times,
Yeah.
50 times, want to set records. So what he threw for 400. I don't know if it's that Dallas is trying to so hard to prove that he's the franchise quarterback with all these throwing the ball. But
Hmm.
I said before, Dak has always been better with balance. It's not his
Sure.
fault he got this money. It's not stop holding. People need to stop holding this like, oh, he got that money. He got to do this. He got, man, look,
Hmm.
that team got to be balanced. Dak is better balanced. That's just what it is. That's the type of quarterback, in my opinion, he is. When he don't really have that running game and he got to throw the ball all the time, yeah, he can do it a few games, but that's not going to be, to me, it'll be a lot of yards, but it won't be
Hmm.
winning football. And I have seen garbage time stats with Dak where the
Yeah.
numbers are low at the beginning and then at the end where the game's kind of over and then you have good stats, you'll look at it and say, oh, that was a good game. When you watched it, you're like, it was an okay game.
Right. Let me ask you this. We know quarterbacks hate being called like bus drivers. That's like one of the most insulting things you can call a quarterback. Do you think Dak, in trying to, if you look back at like 2020, before he broke his leg, when he really started just slinging it like crazy and started putting up the video game stats, do you think that was sort of a change of style for him, or leaning more on throwing the ball more and trying to rack up those stats to kind of help him justify his contract position that
Yeah,
he was currently
I definitely.
negotiating. And now it's just like the normal. Now it's just kind of like that mindset. Not every game. There's certainly games they do a better job balancing him, but I kind of get the feeling sometimes that I don't think he's always seeing the field well. I certainly didn't think he saw the field well in the opener against Tampa Bay. But I also think sometimes he's just looking and kind of pressing too much on that because there is some autonomy there as far as him being able to audible out of run plays and things like that. But I don't know. I feel like he's kind of changed up his style now where he's trying to produce the big numbers because he keeps hearing, oh, you want to be paid like these quarterbacks like a Rodgers or whoever, then you gotta produce in those same ways. You gotta put up similar numbers. And he's kind of from a stat perspective clawed into that territory a little bit, but he's certainly it's certainly not the same efficiency like you said, like that 2020 year. How many times with as bad as the defense was that year were they having to rally behind like from big deficits after like the first quarter or something like that because the offense was trash for the first quarter and then they fell behind 17, 20 points and suddenly they got to start throwing the ball all over the field just to kind of crawl back into it and get competitive again.
Yeah, man. I think I looked at one of his scouting reports on NFL Network.
Mm-hmm.
It was a scouting report on him when he was coming out of college, and you notice, and these scouting report, I don't just me. And once again, I always say this is my opinion. We can go with their own opinion or whatever. That's your opinion. This is my thing. But when we see why doesn't Dak run a lot anymore, and when I saw the
Yeah.
injury, but when he was in college, this some of the things that they were looking at. They said, beat up this year thanks to poor protection. When he wasn't being sacked, he was being hit hard, not as a competitive rusher in
Mm-hmm.
2015. Sack and usage in run game might be taking its toll. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Pocket poise has been compromised because of the because of the hit. So this is what I'd be feeling like sometimes. Like we talked about. He when Dak gets hit a little bit, he
Mm-hmm.
starts getting I think that affects
Atlanta
him.
PTSD.
Yeah, I don't know if that brings it back, but I just feel like when he doesn't trust his maybe guys up front,
Protection. Yeah.
I feel like he presses or
Yep.
he trying to, I don't know what it is, but I just feel like when he's not trusting that protection,
Mm-hmm.
the game around him gets different, and it says
Yeah.
hyper aware of pressure around him, lacks awareness to slide and find temporary shoulder to make a throw. Now,
Yep.
I ain't going to just say all the negatives. And I'm just saying, I still need to see more of this because those things have been going. And this is what I said about Dak. He's still a top 10 quarterback to me, but I feel like, in my opinion, he has peaked. And I said this on the final word, and I'm staying with it. I feel like Dak has peaked. I feel like
Yeah.
he's peaked. I just feel like this
Yeah.
is year 7. This is what Dak is. He's gonna throw yards. Dak is gonna throw yards. He's
Mm-hmm.
gonna make some incredible throws. He's gonna make some, man. What the hell was that throws?
Right.
He gonna win some games. He gonna lose some games. But he's like, I don't know if he's that cusp guy. You feel
Right.
me?
No, I think that's fair. We as far as like him climbing any higher, I don't know that he goes higher as far as his production or anything like that. Like we've probably seen his high watermark at this point. I do think he can improve in terms of how he sees the field and
Yeah.
cutting out some of these mistakes. But yeah, from an ability standpoint and from the statistical standpoint, we've probably seen his best football already, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't still have potentially several more years playing at a very high level, like you said, in that 10 to kind of 15 range, for sure. And if you have the right weapons, he can play higher than that, I think. I thought last year you essentially had those parts, and he was playing at that higher level until he had the ankle injury, or sorry, calf injury, and he never really was the same after that. His mechanics didn't look quite right after that, and he was not nearly as mobile anymore, and it just kind of changed how that year played out. But how he was going through that New England game was stupid. It was career best trajectory, but I don't know. It's a guy who was so sturdy and so reliable from a health standpoint. Then he had obviously the major thing with the leg. Then the kind of prolonged thing from that kind of led to training camp with the mechanics and the I don't remember what the tendon or whatever it was in his basically armpit of his throwing arm that got messed up. And then from that stemmed the calf strain later on. Like it all was a domino effect. But now we have this completely unrelated thing as well. So it's like this guy who was seemingly, completely dependable, never had to worry about his availability, now has had 4 injuries in the span of, a year and a half, not even. And it's kind of like, okay, that does get a little concerning at that point, especially when you're a big quarterback who part of your best qualities was your durability. But I mean, the idea again, as much as we're kind of pointing out the negatives here a little bit with Dak, it's like the idea that he's not better than Cooper Rush, or that this team could operate just fine and have a similar record, let alone a better record, is ridiculous. And I don't even think it's real analysis. I think it's just the same people who just have a bone to pick with Dak for whatever reason, or it's reactionaries who just kind of want to get the hits and the attention. Because so much of what you see on like ESPN or Fox Sports 1, like that's not analysis. It's not like, that's not to say none of them are capable of it, but it's entertainment first. The analysis is like, if they do it, it's like slight, and it's always geared towards a certain narrative. Last year, Dak had 37 touchdowns against 10 picks, a passer rating of over 100. I think he has like a top 10 passer rating all time, and also in like the completion percentage in the top 10. So yeah, it's ridiculous to say like that he's not a good or elite quarterback. However, it's such a small category of guys that can, with lesser or downright mediocre parts, still play at that super high level, like you just don't have many guys that can do that. And that's one of the reasons it doesn't make sense that they would deplete his weapons, at least in the interim, and basically put more pressure on him. Like you look at some of these other teams and what they're doing, how they're investing in it, whether it was how the Bengals quickly built around Burrow, whether it's how the Eagles have built around Jalen Hurts to turn them into a really scary looking team early on this year. That's how you build around these guys. And notice they're doing it on their rookie deals, by the way, something Dallas never really was willing to do for Dak. They don't accelerate their timeline, and it's not even clear that they have a roadmap a lot of the time. It's kind of like they just fall into something, roll with it for a while without ever really pressing or feeling that urgency. And then, like you said, once they find a way to say like, oh, it's no longer the financially feasible option or something like that, it's like they put the blame on the player and kind of like, well, there's only so much that we can pay. We got to deal with all this other stuff. So we're getting this out of Cooper Rush or whoever, then we're good. I think it's foolish when you look at this franchise and the poverty it's had the last 25 years to like have yet another guy like this back to back off of Romo, another guy that has that potential to deliver you a championship, and you're just effing squandering it. That's all it is. It's a joke.
Yeah, I would definitely tend to lean with that. We've been talking about it time and time again as far as how these Joneses operate and how you should see your quarterback and speed up these processes with them. They're not getting any younger. Each 1 year in a life of football is like 7-year dog years. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Those NFL lives are tough lives. So you play 5 years. These guys are retiring early now. These guys aren't playing for 10, 15 years anymore.
Andrew Luck was what, 30, 31?
Right. And he's not the only one. There's been a rash of retirements for very young players.
Travis Frederick, 32.
Yeah, calling it quits, saying, hey, you know what? I'm not really beating my body up. I'm not going to really go through this every single year. I'm going to go ahead and retire. I got other things going on. What's up, everybody? Once again, everybody in the chat, shout out to you. But we'll kind of see how that goes. We both talked about it, and we'll see how this season goes. But you know what? One thing about it before we talk about this Giants matchup, DDP, is the good thing I feel about this is I have emotionally detached away from this.
Yeah.
I love my Dallas Cowboys, but I'm not in love with my Dallas Cowboys.
Fair enough.
You feel what I'm saying? I will
Yeah.
always be there for my boys, always see them, what's up, my dogs, whatever. Well, it ain't that emotional investment where it's like I'm chucking on
They
you every
can't hurt
single
you
night.
anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
can't
can't
hurt
hurt
me.
you anymore.
You're not hurting me anymore.
You
Yeah.
understand them and you see them as they are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, in some ways, that's almost more beautiful because you
It
accept
is.
it. You're not trying to
It
make
is.
them something they're not.
It
But
is.
at the same time, like, yeah, you still watch, you still support and
Yeah.
everything. You're setting aside the sort of fanatical rose-colored glasses that make you not see things as they are sometimes. It's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, the same thing has happened to me. I'll be honest with you, man. The one thing I'm excited to see right now, I coming into the season, I had two. Early on, I'm frustrated on one of them.
Uh-huh.
I said the two things I was amped to see every game were CD Lamb and what I thought was going to be a huge year for him, still might be, but
Mm-hmm.
through 2 weeks, I am very frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And Micah Parsons, which that one has the sequel is off to an even better start than the original, which was a masterpiece in its own right. Micah Parsons is an absolute freak of nature, and I don't think there's a more dynamic defensive weapon in the league. Like, I don't know that he's necessarily the best defensive player in the league, but you literally from snap to snap
He's the
have
best defensive player in the league right now.
yeah, I
He's
mean
the best defensive player in
you
the
can
league. He
have
was
similar
number 2.
domination from like Donald, for instance.
I feel people keep on saying Donald, but not right now. See, here's my thing. There's a shout out for the super chat, $2 holla Cowboys, 27 Giants 17 from Majestic YT. Appreciate y'all on that. But here's the thing, DDP. He was already number 2 player last year, or number 3 behind GJ Watt. I say was better than Watt last year. I'm just saying it, because I just feel like he's just different. Watt is really, really good, but he's not Micah Parsons different. Micah
Right.
Parsons is just different, and you can just see it when you watch him. And so when you see him come into this year, already got 4 sacks, and it looks easy with him. It's not looking hard for him when he's getting these sacks. Like, he licks his chops when he sees somebody really regular in front of him. It's like, oh, I'm getting this sack. It's like, that's how easy it is. You feel me?
Yeah.
That's how easy it is. So to me, right now, he's the best defensive player in the game because he can do multiple things. He can rush the passer, he can drop in coverage, he can play he can set the edge, he can play in that middle, he can do a lot of things for you. And he 21 years old, what?
I mean, total trajectory and everything, absolutely. I think he's in the conversation for best defensive player in the league. I think in terms of taking over a game, I think Donald is still capable of doing the same thing at this current moment. But what makes Micah, the reason I use the word dynamic is every single snap, you have to account for where he is because he'll line up anywhere. He does not care. He'll rush from either side. It does not matter. He'll come up the gut. He's capable of dropping back and being good. One thing that, listening to the ticket earlier this week, Bob Stern pointed out, we talked so much about how we wanted Micah to just focus on rushing the passer. Don't worry about it. Just let him come off the edge. Don't worry as much about the linebacker. He can be a good linebacker, but he is a phenomenal rusher. So like, let him do that. The Cowboys have kind of done that through the first two games. Like last year, he basically was a 2-to-1 ratio rushing the passer versus dropping back into coverage. And this year, it's staggering. It's like over 90% of the time rushing. Against the Bengals, I think he played 59 snaps, I want to say. And it was like 55 rushing and only 4 dropping into coverage. Still enough to keep them honest.
First game, too.
Yeah.
First game, because he had like 24. He led the team in pass rush snaps, I believe, in the first game. I think I was talking about, because I did a video with D-Law, and he had 24 pass rush snaps at the linebacking spot, and D-Law had 21 pass rush snaps at the DN, but he had him more at DN than linebacker because he's just that much of a threat. But like you said, the thing that's good about him is that he's not a strict defensive end. He's not like a DeMarcus Lawrence where you can try to drop him in coverage and it's going to get exposed. He is a defensive end, and that's the position he plays. Michael Parsons is a guy that he played defensive end in high school, but they converted him because the kid is just so athletic. So when you have somebody like that, like you said, DQ is like, I'm a kid in the candy store because I can see matchups. I can look over here. Oh, I got this guy out here in one-on-one. You saw what he did with the guy. I can't remember the name from the Bengals, the left tackle. He went right over
Yeah.
top of him. It was too easy. He basically slapped them hands off one time. It was easy. He already swallowed the quarterback and Joe Burrow. That's how
That's
good it is. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
that's the crazy thing about him is it's not just that he has freakish speed and bend. Like he's got strength, like crazy strength. The fact that he's still like what, like 235, 240, and he can still bull rush like these full grown
300,
tackles. Yeah.
340s. Mm-hmm.
Insane. Utterly insane to have that combination of power and speed and bend while still being a lighter guy relative to, the guys he's going up against. Like that's utter insanity, and that's one of those things that just makes him an absolute hybrid that I don't think there is a real equivalent to what he does. Like there are other guys, a couple other guys that are sort of similar in terms of that duality, but they don't do it at the level that he does
Right.
it.
He's just
So
different.
yeah, and that's why I say I would say currently like in that conversation for best defensive player in the league. Certainly to me, unquestionably the most dynamic, most explosive defensive player in the league. And this stat from Todd Archer, Parsons already has 15 pass rush wins this season, the most by any player in the NFL. There are 7 teams with 15 or fewer pass rush wins through the first 2 weeks. He's doing it by himself. Like he is winning almost every matchup. And the only thing like from week 1 people like cherry picked or whatever was Fournette, kind of blindsiding him or something and making that like a big deal. Like I didn't even care when I saw that because it was just like, yeah, it's you got a shot on a guy who was engaging with another player. You hit him up high, whatever. Like I'm not mad about the thing. It's not like I'm like, oh, that's a dirty hit or anything like that. I'm just like, okay, yeah, Parsons is 230 and you blindsided him with it. Like that happens. But ask me who had a bigger impact on the game, Fournette or Parsons, and let's have that conversation. How often was Parsons living in the backfield and wreaking havoc? So yeah, it's night and day difference. There's nothing like him. Doesn't mean that he's never going to have a snap where someone gets the better of him or finds a way to kind of chip him or take that kind of shot at him or something. But there's nothing that can contain him for the duration of a game. And as long as he's healthy, sky's the limit for the defense.
There, you said it right there. The sky is the limit for the defense, and the reason why this defense can be special is because of him. If you didn't have him on this defense, you wouldn't say this defense could be special. This is my opinion. You wouldn't say it, but you would say it with this defense can be special because you got a wave of really good players, good players in D-Law, good players in Dante Fowler Jr., good players in Osa Ogadezua, good players in Dorrance on Jr. Notice I'm not saying great players, but these are all good players.
Yeah.
But when you got that one dog like they had with Lawrence Taylor, or when they had with the Derek Thomases, and they put that defense and built it around them and said, okay, we're going to put some linebackers with you that can basically make you better. Because basically now, if you looked at these first 2 games, that signing of Anthony Bartler is good because it allows Micah Parsons to still continue to be free because you have a veteran that can play in that middle. He can play multiple positions for you. You don't have to worry about a young guy being out there and him missing assignments or calling the wrong calls. You got a vet who's already been around your other coaching staff, so he knows what to do. So once again, that's more for Micah Parsons to be great because you got a guy who can take away that another element of I have to worry about this. No, I can just be free and let my game and just do whatever I want and just be great. That's what you have to do to when you get a star like that. You got to get those good complementary players that complement him and let him kind of just do his thing, not to where he's so overloaded. You feel me? Not where to where he's so overloaded and can't be him. You feel what I'm saying? And I feel like this is why I like the defense because you have so many different other pieces that can really bounce off of him to make him even more great. You get what I'm saying? When you got the Dorrance Armstrong Jr., the Fowler Jr.'s, and those guys rushing the quarterback, the Ogadezuas, and then you got the guys in Gallimore and Bohanna starting to hold that front. That's what's going to be great. So jumping into this Giants game, I'm gonna do a quick tailspin, not tailspin, but a good
pivot.
Spin into good pivot. That's what you call it. Good pivot into it. Let's talk about these Giants right now. So they're 2-0. And I said, okay, they're 2-0, but I'm not impressed because they beat 2 teams that are both 0-2. Titans are 0-2. Carolina Panthers are 0-2.
Yep.
So, yes, Saquon Barkley went nuts that first game against the Titans. I was surprised. He came back to earth against those Panthers a little bit. Maybe no, the Titans got a good front. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
can't say that. But I feel like it is with this DDP. And I'm gonna ask you this. The new coach over there got him playing, and I just feel like this. You don't got nothing to lose. Ain't nobody expect you to win nothing. So
Yep.
you can be free. You can play crazy. You can do whatever. You can try things. You can go for it on two the first game of the year because you don't have nothing to lose. And I feel like that's what's kind of helping them. But can the Cowboys bring them down to earth this game as well?
So much of his production, Saquon, he's leading the league in rushing, yeah. But like so much of his production is built on the back of like two particular runs. I think it was Skywalker Steel that I saw the stat from. If you take like his other like 37 attempts or something like that, he's averaging like 3.6 a carry. It's really just the back of like two major explosive plays that his production is built. And then if you look at like Daniel Jones, he hadn't even thrown for 200 yards yet. He's another of those guys kind of in that precarious position where he's just trying to figure out like, okay, am I going to be able to set myself up for like this $200 million deal or something like that? It didn't work for Baker. Yeah, exactly. But like it didn't work for Baker. It did work for Kyler. Didn't work for, I think Trubisky got paid before he got traded, right?
I think he got paid a little
I
bit.
think he did.
don't
Boy, he should not have
know.
gotten paid. He should not
I
have.
don't know, man. That's
If he did, he
crazy.
shouldn't have.
I still can't believe he went that high.
Yeah, but regardless, just some of these guys that are in this kind of precarious situation where it's like the line between being the next guy to get paid and therefore making like $200 million and kind of being one last year of your rookie deal and then poof, you're off somewhere else. And you mentioned Carolina. It's not really working for Baker yet either, and that for an OU guy, that's painful for me because Baker was my dude. But it is what it is. I had to watch Bradford flounder as well, so it happens. But hey, at least I got Kyler right now. That's cool, right? But
he's sus though.
Yeah.
He good, but
at the very least, he's a human highlight reel that's exciting,
right? For sure.
But yeah, so Jones is in that camp too, and the fact that through 2 weeks he's yet to throw for even 200 yards, and the first game he was like 17-21, so at least he was efficient, even though I think he had like 178 passing yards or something. This last game, he wasn't even terribly. I mean, he was like 22 of 34, like certainly not inefficient, but it's not like it was like, all right, well, a lot of underneath, high completion percentage. Like it was like, no, that's fine, but like that plus less than 200 yards is a little concerning. I think if you can keep Saquon bottled up, and again, he only has to really gouge you once, maybe twice. Doesn't have to necessarily be the full home run, but he can hit you with these big blows that dictate and kind of shift the course of the game. If you can keep him pretty well contained, then I think you still got a shot, even with Cooper Rush, even with it being on the road. But I'm also aware that the Giants haven't been good for a few years now. And the fact that they are 2-0, even if it is a little bit of a sus 2-0, certainly of the undefeated teams, they're the most questionable, let's say. You're looking at that, and it's like, all right, well, those fans hate your guts anyway, being the Cowboys. And then you got to go to New York, and they're rooting for their team that's unbeaten for a chance to beat the tar out of you without Dak. Yeah, they're going to be going absolutely bonkers. Like, this is not the same. Like, when Cooper Rush had to go into Minnesota, they could not have cared less who he was, the opposing crowd. They didn't know who he was. They didn't know anything he was going to do or capable of. They were indifferent. With this last game against the Bengals, that's your home crowd. A little bit of it, like, all right, well, he did it once. Let's see if he does it again. Okay, well, now he's done it again. Now you got a little bit of tape, and now I don't think he's catching anyone by surprise. So I think they're going to come after Cooper Rush, and I think he's probably going to struggle more than we've seen in his two previous starts. But I still lean on, if the defense can contain Barkley, I'm not scared of Jones. I'm just not. And so I think they're going to have a puncher's chance, even with that being the case, even with the Giants having home field, even with them being healthier and the unbeaten team so far.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say a few stats on this and why I feel like the Cowboys should win, even with Cooper Rush. I already predicted them to beat the Giants, but they should still beat them even with Cooper Rush because they just have more talent. 6 career games against the Dallas Cowboys, Saquon Barkley averages 11 carries. He averages almost 5 yards a carry because he's had those big explosive runs. You know what I mean? We've seen him
Mhm.
break off those big gains, but he only has averaged 57 yards a game in those 6 games against the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
57 yards a game. So it's not like he's been torching Dallas and running all over the Cowboys. So the Cowboys can definitely bottle him up. And they need to, because like I said the run defense for the Cowboys was something I have to keep my eye on. They gave
Mhm.
up over 100 and close to 130 the first game, brought it back down better with Joe Mixon because I was concerned about that.
Yeah.
But
See, Mixon doesn't scare me for like, and again, that's another OU guy, but he doesn't scare me in terms of like running wild on you. Like he's efficient, he's balanced. But I was never afraid in this matchup with the Bengals of Joe Mixon. It was always Chase and Burrow that I was concerned about.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? See, here's the thing. I feel you about that, but then that's when they do those little hike the ball, play fake, boom, drop
Yeah,
it into Mixon, then he breaks off a 10-yard
he's a
game.
good receiving
Because
back for sure.
if you looked at when they had that touchdown drive, when they had those 21 plays,
Yep,
Mixon got a heavy dose of the run in that game, and he was getting positive yards. He was getting 4, he was
yep.
getting 3, he was getting 5, he
A
was
lot of
getting
those
4.
DeMarco dirty yards.
Yeah, he was getting those strong yards. So it was
I'm getting
kind
to
of
talk
like
about so many OU players today. This is wonderful.
right. That's kind of crazy, right? You got a lot of these guys we're talking about, but he was still getting positive yardage. But once again, Saquon Barkley, Cowboys can bottle him up because I feel like they have the talent to do it,
Yeah,
and they're healthy along the whole defensive line. I believe Basham will be back, but I love seeing how Fowler was playing
yeah,
and Dorrance Armstrong Jr. And if Bohanna continues to play, him and Gallimore hold that front like they are, it's just going to be an easier game. And then here, when we talk about Daniel Jones, how you said, I'm not afraid of Daniel Jones. Well, neither am I. In his 5 career games against the Dallas Cowboys, he's only thrown for 155 yards a game. Yeah, he's averaging 6
wow,
yards a pass play. That's terrible.
yeah,
6.7.
that's
Okay.
bad.
9 sacks. All right. And we know, look, 5 fumbles, 5 lost. And that's what I said, keep your eyes on. He hasn't had a lot of
I mean,
interceptions.
who's he usually throwing to? Sterling Shepard, another OU
Exactly.
guy. I tied it back again.
There you go. You brought it back. You're bringing sexy back right now. You're bringing sexy back.
I
But
try, man. I try.
this is the key though. 5 fumbles, 5
Yeah,
lost.
yeah, that's bad.
So who were we just talking about?
Jones.
No, Michael Parsons.
Oh yeah. You're talking about
What is
the
he? What
Cowboys
is he?
defense. Yep, wrecking
What is he?
games.
What is he good at? Really getting you from the behind and
That just sounds very.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
He snatches souls. Let's go with
he
an old
snatches
Demarcus
souls.
Lawrence quote.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
he
goes
snatch
out there and snatches souls.
he snatches souls. So he's on the pass rush. He's snatching your soul.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones is going to fumble the ball. Cowboys pick it up. And remember, it happened in that Washington game
Yep.
where he hit the quarterback like that. They picked up the fumble and they ran it back for the touchdown. Cowboys need something like this to get them rolling because I don't think they score a lot of points. I think it's the same thing, around 20 points. I think that's the number for Cooper Rush because let's remember, even when he won that game, or that game was won in Minnesota, can we not remember that crazy play that Amari Cooper caught where it was
The juggling
like 3
catch.
times?
Yeah.
I mean, if
Yep.
he doesn't make that catch, Dallas probably don't even win that game. And then we also got to understand in that Bengals game, he could have had 2 to 3 picks.
Oh,
2 of them could have been pick six.
Same
They
drive.
dropped them. You feel
Same
me?
drive had like 3 before the
Right.
Dalton Schultz fumble, which by the way, that's another factor is now that he's out with a PCL injury. But yeah,
I like Jake from State Farm.
Yeah, true. That one drive alone had like 3 dangerous plays in a row, and then Schultz finally fumbles, which by the way, he really has a knack for that. Like when things start getting a little shaky with the offense, my number one assumption is, okay, if they turn it over, it's going to be a Schultz fumble. And it almost always is. Whether it's him doing it back to back, like, oh, hey, this one got overturned by replay. Not this one. Like the next play, he goes out and does the same thing. Like it's ridiculous. But yeah, no, I agree. Cooper Rush, shaky for sure, had 2 or 3 plays that could have been disastrous, one of which could have been a pick 6 and would have been the bookend. part of me thought when Cincinnati, Dallas was up, like 17-3 in that game. Cincinnati climbs all the way back, and then that 21 play drive gets the 2-point conversion, ties it up at 17, and gets the ball right back. I was just like, I don't know that Dallas is going to do this, because the defense finally might be getting worn down a little bit. Thankfully, they had a really good stand and response in them. Trayvon Diggs capping it off with probably the best defensive play I've seen from him that didn't have to involve an interception.
Right.
But then Cooper Rush and them go out and they make it happen. So credit to them. But I didn't have a whole lot of trust that was going to happen, because they got super conservative. And after like 2 immediate drives for touchdowns, they went ice cold in the second half. They didn't do anything. And that was kind of the case against Minnesota. They responded early, built a lead, and then they kind of weathered the storm, and then they had to deliver the one counter punch at the end. That's not always going to work. You can't just rely on like, okay, 2 quick touchdowns. Now let's go super conservative. You can't do that, man. You got to be able to press. Like, not saying you have to go for the throat every single down, every single play, whatever, but you got to at least be more aggressive and not just trust. As good as your defense is, you can't just say, all right, 2-score lead. Let's just get real conservative with this, just kind of milk clock and see if the defense can kind of hold their own. Because eventually they're going to wear down a little bit, and that's how you saw a freaking 21 play drive. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the Cowboys, I feel like this is a game the Cowboys still should win, even with Cooper Rush. Even going down to New York, I don't feel like this should be an upset. They're only going to make it an upset if they play down to the level of the competition, even with Cooper Rush. If they play down to the level of competition, this 2-0 is a fraud. It's a fraud 2-0. I'm sorry, I'm not hating, but it's a fraud 2-0. You haven't beat anybody that's won a game. You know what I'm saying? You haven't beat a team that has won a game. So this is a fraud 2-0. You should still come in there and handle your business. Your defense should overwhelm this offense. They got a rookie right tackle, and Neil Thomas is legit. You saw what he came out of. He had his little struggles this first year, but he was a legit player, and he's doing it. But they got that right side is going to be some sus. So that you can attack things, tight end situation, you don't know. And once again, if you can, and it's not like if you really look at the stats on the defensive side, they're doing things as well. First of all, they've given up 8 sacks already. I think they gave up 5 the last game. So Daniel Jones is already getting us sacked a lot. They've only got 3 sacks as a defense, okay? So that's something you got to look at.
Yeah.
And their defense is giving up 4.9 yards on the run, okay? And a total of 411 yards. So they're not good as far as the run defense, and you're getting a lot of yardage on them as well. So if you look at across the board, that 2-0 is a fraud on both sides of the ball. The Cowboys should win this. And the way they can really blow it up, blow the game out, is if turnovers from the defensive side. I really feel like if they get turnovers from the defensive side and it gets out of hand quickly, then they can kind of, you see a lot of play, the Kevontae Turpins and those guys get the punt returns. That's when it kind of just blows up. But I feel like the defense in particular, it keeps on ringing back to me, DDP. Defensive turnovers are what's going to really blow this game up.
I agree. That's definitely – I wasn't aware of the yardage they were allowing on the ground, New York. To me, that says that should be you'll probably get a healthy dose of Zeke, because you always do. But I expect some big plays then from Tony Pollard. He had a huge game for them this last one. I really wanted him to get that 40-yard scamper for a touchdown. They call him down at like the 1-inch line, but at least they had the decency to give him the ball right back on like a halfback plunge, essentially, to let him get the touchdown still. But yeah, when you got him popping, man, the offense is so much more dynamic and dangerous, and that's a huge factor for this offense, especially while you're without Dak. Might be only another couple games, maybe, but if you have him and you have him rolling, and you can then work in Zeke for that just kind of power punch and just kind of wear the defense down a little bit, even though the Zeke of old, like the Ohio State Zeke or the rookie year where he could just take it 80 yards on a whim, that's gone. But you can still have production from him and still have a viable role for him, because you have Pollard to give you that counter punch. So yeah, big game potentially for the running backs. Certainly sets up well for them. And Cooper Rush, if the Giants aren't able to get to him, then maybe he can do a little bit of something. But we'll see. I do like the Cowboys' chances in this. I would say it's probably a fairly close game. I imagine it's probably a one-score game until a little bit of insurance late. So we'll say 10-point, 11-point win, something like that for Dallas would be my rough idea. But I agree that it's probably something like 23-17, or no, it's not 11 points. I can't effing count. 23-13, something like that. Something along those lines is my thinking.
I can feel you on that. 24-13, something like that. It could be a 31 if there's defensive turnovers to kind of blow the game open. I don't think it's going to be an offensive barrage by any means. But this could be a game, just like you mentioned, where you could see Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, maybe not both getting 100 yards, but you could see them both getting like an 85, 90-yard game, both between the both of them.
Mm-hmm.
You could see a game where it's maybe a sneaky game where Jake Ferguson, because Dalton Schultz has nursed an injury, he gets a slippy catch. You know what I mean? So let's see what happens with Noah Brown. He's going to see if he's going on this continued barrage of showing that, he can be better. He even said himself that, hey, when the opportunity shined on me last year,
Right.
I dropped the ball. So, I wanted to make sure I didn't come back again this next year. So I really appreciate that coming out of his mouth saying that, and he's been a better player because of it. So shout out to Noah Brown. So,
Yeah.
in my ending and closing on his Giants, I just feel like you said, DDP, if they get 20-something points, it's going to be because of defensive. Something's going to happen.
Defense
Defensive
or special
turnovers,
teams. Yep.
some defense, special teams. Something's going to happen in this game, kind of really open it up. And then that's when the plays can start kind of rolling because the defense can really pin their ears back. And I see this game being a 3-turnover game. I'm going to say a 3-turnover game by the Cowboys.
Okay. Nice. I like it. Let's see. So before we wrap up here, we want to roll into that little bit of Mavs talk we had that we were discussing beforehand. All right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So pivoting here real quick into a little bit of Mavs talk here. Training camp opening up here soon for them. The Mavericks were linked to a number of players as they've been trying to find a secondary ball handler, a guy to kind of run that second unit. They did have interest in Dennis Schroeder, but he ends up re-signing with the Lakers for like $2 million, something stupid low. It's crazy that he goes back there, frankly, because you look at like the log jam they have. Like you got Russell Westbrook, you got Patrick Beverly, and now you have Dennis Schroeder. Not a great fit, but he is tight with Russ. He obviously, it's weird because you think about it too, like a couple of years ago, he turned down an extension 4 years for like $84 million from the Lakers. He wanted a $120 million contract. You see where he went. He basically signed a 1-year deal with Boston. It didn't work. They traded him mid-year, and now he's having to kind of come back to LA. And it's like, ooh, on a $2 million deal. That's about as bad of a misplaying your hand as I've seen since Nerlens Noel turned down a 4-year, $70 million offer from the Mavericks. Like Nerlens Noel, I know he's still around, but bro, I don't think he's totaled 15 million since that happened. Like that is probably
and
the
NBA contract and
NBA
right, and NBA contracts, you get to keep those. They ain't like the NFL where they cut you after 1 year,
right?
And you ain't seeing that money. You see that money.
Yeah, it's really bad. And so Dennis Schroeder, same sort of thing, turning down $84 million with the Lakers. And instead,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and instead now he's back like a year or two later for $2.4 million, something like that.
That's wild.
That's ridiculous.
That's
to
insane.
me. Now, to be fair, he was great playing in the Euro basketball and everything. Like you saw a game with him and Luka going at it, and he was playing well. Like he looks like he's kind of rebounded after a dip of a year or two where his value and perceived value plummeted. That's why he was still out there at this point, was
because he got too cocky. That's what it was.
Yeah.
See, that was his problem.
He won six-man of the year with OKC just a year or so earlier. Like he went from like a damn good sixth man to like borderline out of the league within like 2 or 3 years, and that's ridiculous because he's not even 30. He's like
But
28 or
here's the
29.
thing, though, DDP, with him, I'm kind of cool on him because if you notice in his career, he's always had issues with players.
Yeah.
Players have always said something about Dennis Schroeder,
Yep.
like the front office. I don't know if front office, but
Atlanta.
people with the Lakers were
Oh, yeah.
talking about. So I think that's what it is. I think he thinks he's a little bit too much because he was getting pumped up at Atlanta. Atlanta was pumping his head up, and I
Yep.
feel like he just really started having that attitude around the league. And you gambled wrong because you thought you were better than you were, and
Right.
then he's good. He's a good player, but
I
calm
would have
down thinking you great.
really liked it for the Mavericks to sign him, and that's knowing he still has obvious flaws. But again, if you're looking for someone who could, for a very good value
can
contract, score and kind of fill some of that role Jalen Brunson had for you, that's it. Schroeder would have been a perfect like bargain bin version
You
of
right.
that,
You
while
right.
still giving you a secondary ball handler. That's why I was
You
like,
right.
okay, I'm really in on this idea if they will do it. They had interest again, but he wanted to go back to LA, I guess. So that is what it is. Then I was like, all right, fine. Give me the Dennis Smith Jr. reunion. Give me one go around. Give him a camp invite. How hard is that, right? You went and saw his workout. Fine. Just go do a camp invite. Well, son of a gun, I made the thumbnails for this show, and then midday, Shams has an update. Free agent guard Dennis Smith Jr. has agreed to a 1-year deal with the Charlotte Hornets. Okay, the Dennis Smith Jr. reunion is dead again. He's been wanting to come back to Dallas for literally like 3 years. Last year was the first year it kind of was reasonable to expect because it was a new coaching staff. I think what he could bring, there is a need for. They need a little bit of that athleticism. They need a little bit of that playmaking. He is a serviceable defender, can be a guy that generates a lot of steals. His problem is health. He's been dinged up a lot since leaving Dallas. And honestly, I don't think he's ever rebuilt his confidence since he got dealt to New York and so quickly went from being considered like he was going to be their next prince, essentially, to being booed by the crowd and them chanting the second he came in the game for them to put, which is crazy to think about, for them chanting to put back in Frank Ntilikina. Like, Frank's nice. He's a nice role player, bench player. But in New York, they were already so over Dennis Smith so fast. They were literally saying, just give us back Frank on the floor. Put him literally right back in the game. I don't think Dennis has ever gotten over that. And, you've seen a flash here and there in Detroit, in Portland. He had his workout that the Mavericks attended earlier this offseason, and the athleticism is still there. We're talking about a guy that's like 25, 24. He's still super young. The thing that I think probably put the Mavericks off on it, again, the health, the wavering confidence, and a busted ass jump shot. Like, in his workout, he's always had a little bit of a hitch, but in that workout, the little hitch turned into like,
that was a terrible hitch,
a Grand Canyon. It was
as soon as I seen the first time he shoot it. As soon as the first time I seen him shoot it, remember I hit you up and you hit me up at the same time and said, "Oh, what the hell is that? It's over."
Yeah, no,
it's over.
I mean, I get it. He can knock down 20, 30 in a row or whatever. I don't know how many in a row he made in the workout. But the form and everything, like,
terrible.
That's the kind of thing when a guy starts. He was never a good outside shooter, like, percentage-wise.
That's somebody whose confidence is totally broke if they're shooting like that.
And he's trying to reinvent everything. Right. He's working with these weird shot doctors who are like doing all this stuff.
Voodoo guys. It's
so
when you
now
shoot it.
Right. So now he's going to Charlotte. I mean, he's from North Carolina, so he's going home, kind of. All right. And as you pointed out when I told you about it, that's not the worst place for him to go. Like, they actually have some interesting stuff going on with that team. So him playing with ball is interesting for sure. But I don't know. It's a bummer. I really wanted them to at least give him the camp invite and see, because I think there's still something there. I know he's tight with Luca. I know they're not that concerned with like just getting Luca's buddies in here though, which I can kind of appreciate. But yeah, it's not happening. Instead, as Chuck Cooperstein pointed out earlier in the afternoon, before the new Dennis Smith Jr. deal I think was announced, the Mavericks announced that they have signed guards McKinley Wright, Tyler Hall, and DJ Stewart, along with forwards Huba Mohamadougi. It's literally phonetically spelled out. That is apparently, according to Chuck Cooperstein, how you say it. Mohamadougi. All right, Mohamadougi, and Marcus Bingham Jr. I'll be honest with you, I don't know these names, but like I don't follow the college game really. So maybe someone knows some of these names. Are like, oh, that's a nice player to bring in. I don't know, but I'm just gonna say I haven't heard of them, and they're probably gonna be guys that are mostly playing with the legends or 2-day contracts that never really see the floor unless we're talking garbage time. Nothing there is moving the needle for me. So it is what it is. I think the Mavericks have the same holes in the roster they had as soon as Jalen left. And I think they're going to just give this team a chance to see what they've got until basically the trade deadline. I think they're going to give them at least a month of the season to kind of assess, and then they'll make a determination from there.
Well, like you said, I was yawning when you were mentioning all those names. I fell asleep when you were mentioning all those names. You know what I'm saying? So
I just assumed you did that anytime I talked. For
no,
too long.
not at all. But when you mentioned them names, it was like, okay, I'm up again. But it's just
you're like,
okay.
Bahama, what?
Yeah, exactly.
that was when you perked up.
Bahama Mama.
He's a doogie? What?
I'm a Baka Doogie. Well, okay.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, man, losing out on a couple good players that I think we both agree that they could have helped the franchise. I kind of don't know where they're going in that direction, but we'll see kind of how it all kind of unfolds. They made some moves. It looks like they're kind of standing pat with those moves, really not going any hard anywhere else. And we'll just see how it kind of comes into the season. But I feel like that backup guard position is a glaring need, especially at the point guard. And I feel like they need to figure that out, because I feel like that will come back and, rear its ugly head during the season.
I think they'll do something. I just think it's not going to be immediate. They're going to see what they got. And as I mentioned a couple shows ago, the insiders are basically saying that they're not looking to deal any draft pick capital. They essentially have to weather like the final bit of the Porzingis deal, and then that's going to open up some opportunities for them where they'll actually have some draft capital that they can pair for a bigger move that might honestly still be a couple of years down the road. But that's like, as you talk about that, they haven't taken the draft and those assets seriously for a long time. So they gotta rebuild that. And that might be working towards a bigger trade if you're looking at doing something like that. That certainly does not mean that you can't address backup point guard effectively somewhere. Like there are options out there. We just have to see what they end up doing.
Yeah.
But
we'll see.
It'll be interesting. It's not that far, man. The season starts very soon. I saw something the other day. It was maybe a day or two ago saying we are Jason Terry days away from the start of the season, 31. So now we're probably like 29, 28, something like that. So it's coming.
Yeah, and it's coming on rapid, just like the NFL came on out of nowhere. And now it's here. It's in the mix, and you're doing a thing. So we're going to be excited to have the basketball and NBA basketball and NFL coverage for this first time year with myself and DDP. We'll be doing it, and I'm excited for it because we have been talking about this for years, actually, about always kind of combining our NBA with our NFL Cowboys, Mavericks and Cowboys, and be able to talk about this. And we've been going back and forth trying to organize it. So we've finally been able to do it with Positively Relentless. I love it, and I'm really excited to when the basketball season starts. So like we can talk with football, how we can actually talk about the real game. We can actually talk about real matchups, and we can actually see some good things that can happen during the season. So I'm excited for it. Everybody who's in the feed, make sure you pay attention to Positively Relentless. Go support every Wednesday, and it's a good midday week. Happy Hump Day, and we'll be able to see a lot of things, especially with the NBA. They got multiple games that go during the week, so we'll be able to catch a game and then be able to talk about a game. So I think that'll be unique, and I think you guys will really like it. So I'm excited for it.
And guys, be sure to check out the podcast as well. Obviously, you're watching it here live now if you're in the chat right now. But in case you missed this or something, or you want to revisit something we said, like you caught the tail end of the show or something, we also we're on Spotify as well, Apple Podcasts, all that. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, basically, the show is there. So by all means, check it out. Give it a follow. If you want to be real nice, leave a review. And we'll keep growing this thing. Yeah, good one. You're like, 1 star.
Yeah, no, don't do that. Why? Just do that somewhere else, please.
Right. So yeah, good vibes. Leave a good review. We're gonna keep growing this thing, and I don't know. I'm looking at doing some potential merch stuff down the road, but that'll be on like a kind of on demand sort of thing. Like, I'm not gonna just end up with like boxes of this shit in the corner.
Right, just be sitting there. No. We're gonna be.
I've done that before. I've
learned the hard way.
I've got probably like 20 something prospect shirts that are like an old design, like an old logo. And I'm just like, I'm never going to do anything with this. So yeah.
Donation.
Yeah. Not gonna roll that back, but we'll figure something out here. We'll try and get some kind of some merch. And I don't know, probably I've been kicking around this idea of like a once a month kind of giveaway thing of a couple shirts or something like that, but we'll figure out how we want to set that up. But that's all I got. Anything else we want to hit on before we go?
No, man, I'm ready to, just get ready for this game Sunday coming up against these Giants if these Cowboys win it. And like I said, get ready for this upcoming NBA season. It's going to be more news as we talk about probably within this week as things get closer to the season. So like I said, I'm just looking forward to jumping on this Mavs and Cowboys during the year and see how it goes. Let's rock it out.
Sounds good, man. All right. Until next time, guys.